I'd like to call the Duval Committee of the Whole workshop for December 2nd, 2025 to order at 5:30 p.m. We actually have a little slightly different agenda this evening. We're going to review the regular meeting agenda and then provide a little time for folks to mix and mingle before we actually start the regular meeting. So is there any feedback in terms of the review of the regular meeting agenda for this evening? All right. Well, that being the case, going to give folks an opportunity to get up and mix and mingle for roughly 15 minutes. We'll reconvene at 5:45, and I guess we get to it. We can sort of.
I can go through the internal list of things that we're going to do, so I can manage everyone's expectations. So from 5:45 to 6:10. The mayor will give remarks, Mayor Pro Tem will give remarks, and anyone who would like to speak about the mayor's service from 6:10 to 6:15. We will have remarks honoring Councilmember Kupel, 6:15 to 6:20. Remarks honoring Councilmember Naplin, 6:20 to 6:25. Remarks honoring Councilmember McHenry as a council member. And then we will wrap up that part of the evening at 6:30. We will begin swearing in our new council members. So first we will swear in Councilmember Wiggins, then Councilmember Kozlowski. We will swear in and congratulate Councilmember Supple for remaining on council. And then finally swearing in and congratulating Councilmember Olin. And then we will swear in our new mayor.
And I do want to take a moment to sort of welcome everyone here tonight. We both have some new elected officials, we have guests, we have former council members. So again, appreciate everyone making time this evening to come out and celebrate with council and the mayor. And again, take some opportunity to get to know other folks in the room or folks that you do know, and we will reconvene in 15 minutes.
Oh, this is yours. Well, I just didn't, if you didn't have it, yeah, I was going to. Extending you can.
Eyes recorded.
Because you don't have the references. So
Okay.
yeah, we can do it. Yeah.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who has made it out tonight. This is a pretty incredible turnout for both celebrating my retirement of 18 years of service to the city, as well as welcoming our new mayor, Amy McHenry, and honoring our outgoing council members, as well as our incoming council members with swearing in this evening. I want to note that this was all put on by our staff. And before we get into everything, I just want to express to everyone here how incredible the city of Duval staff is and has been for the last 18 years. This is the most incredible group of professionals that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. No one is more dedicated to our community than the men and women who call Duval their work home. Anything that we have achieved in this community is because of our staff. Without them, much of what you see in town and the positive improvements that have come over the years wouldn't be here. They spend their days, their evenings, and many even volunteer on their weekends to support our community events for the love of our community. So it's pretty special. And I do want to call out a few folks that are here that are from out of our community, but very connected. I want to recognize Councilmember Cassidy Quigley Curtis from the city of Cle Elum and Mayor Matthew Lund from the city of Cle Elum. And Matthew Lund is the current secretary of the Association of Washington Cities, which I'm currently past president for. As well as I want to recognize Gemma from Congressman Schreier's office and Representative Larry Springer and his wife, Kirkland City Council member Penny Sweet. For those that don't know, I am in here today because of Larry and Penny. I've known them now for over 20 years and cut my teeth working for Larry when he was a new legislator. And no one has taught me more about the value and ethics in public service and how to conduct yourselves and how to make difficult choices, even when it may anger the community, but the outcome is what the community wants. And being able to take hard votes and make hard decisions really comes from the learning and support that I've received from those two as mentors and family over the past 20 years. So thank you for being here.
It was a two-way street.
I also want to take a quick moment to thank all of council for all of your hard work. We've had a lot of changes, particularly over the last 16 years. There's not a face here that on the city council that was here when I started 16 years ago as an elected official. Some of you I served with on planning commission long ago, and the progression to council and continuing to serve is always there. You all have the heart of and soul of the community at the forefront in everything that you do, and are always thinking long-term for the betterment and stability of our community. And in addition to the staff, nothing that we have gotten done would have gotten done without the majority votes that have gotten us where we are today. A really special shout out to our city administrator, Cynthia McNabb.
I'm a weeper.
Cynthia, we were very lucky to have Cynthia come to us 3 years ago. And when I needed to go back to work full time and not be working at the city 60 hours a week, Cynthia stepped in and didn't just do the job, she raised the bar. Despite coming in out of a pandemic and everything else, she has done an absolutely extraordinary job on our HR policies, getting us legally right, helping make sure that our staffing plans are right-sided to provide both the services our community wants and meet all of our legal requirements and keep us out of trouble. And just overall, an absolutely fantastic human being. And that goes for all of our directors as well. We've got Beth McMinn, our finance director, we've got John Vitero, we have our police chief, we have our deputy city clerk, our public works director, engineer. We have a lot of staff here tonight. And we also want to recognize former council member Diane Brignicki, who's here, as well as former mayor and council member Becky Nixon, and outgoing council member Carol Felt, as well as our members of the Cultural Commission and Civil Service Commission that are here. I could probably go on. I've got lots to say, but I'm going to let it go for now. And just thank you all for being here.
So the mayor obviously did a lot of intros. You know, I do have a sort of a personal connection as well. She referenced, you know, initially serving on the Planning Commission. I think she reached out to me when there was an opening on council. So the reason I'm on the council today is because of the outreach, and you know, really appreciate. There's obviously been lots of challenges the city has grown, but you know, taking us through sort of the COVID pandemic and out the other side had its own set of challenges and a lot of learnings along the way. I'm going to actually read the certificate of recognition. I think this highlights some of the things that I would bring up anyway, but it sort of encapsulates a lot of this, and staff and other folks have signed on the outside. To all whom these present shall come greeting, we members of the Duval City Council, in heartfelt appreciation for the almost 19 years of public service given to the city of Duval as a planning commissioner, council member, and mayor, and for her steadfast commitment to the betterment of our community, extend our heartfelt gratitude along with that of the city government for the significant contributions to our community's growth and development accomplished by Amy Ockerlander. Mayor Ockerlander's thoughtful leadership, integrity, and vision have helped guide Duval through challenging times, as well as times of growth and change, while keeping the heart of our city, its people, at the center of every decision. Her service has left a lasting legacy of collaboration, compassion, and civic pride that will continue to inspire those who follow in her footsteps. We and our constituents have deep gratitude for your countless contributions and unwavering dedication to making Duval a wonderful place to live, work, and belong. And then it's been signed by council. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Yeah, Rod did mention, you know, we've been through a lot of hard times. My first term, we started out with some really tragic events. Then we had the famous Snowmageddon, and following on the heels the following year, we entered a global pandemic. The staff here really helped manage that well. The council supported the necessary measures to help keep our community and our staff safe. And that did put a lot of our work on hold, but we continued to work through it and achieve pretty much overwhelming majority of what I promised voters that I would continue to work on. And that's something that I will take with me forever and be proud of the teamwork and collaboration and community support that made it happen. So thank you all.
So, we obviously just came out of an election cycle and we've want to congratulate, those that are going to be appointed tonight. I think at the same time, we're losing some council members as well. And, Carol hasn't been on the council for a long time, but she's definitely, brought her perspective and her point of view and her, great personality. I think it's been a privilege to serve with her. So I did want to read a certificate of recognition to Carol as well. And if you want to come up, Carol, I know you just love being the center of attention.
Hi.
To all of whom these credence shall come greeting. And I'm reading this on behalf of the mayor, but I think it represents council. In appreciation for the service given to the Duval City Council, extend our heartfelt gratitude along with that of the Duval City Council and city government for the significant contributions to our community's growth and development accomplished by Carol Kufelt. Councilmember Kufelt has served on the Duval City Council with distinction, bringing her kindness, positivity, compassion, and commitment to inclusivity to the council, to council deliberations, therefore shaping the future in our city as one of inclusivity and acceptance. During her tenure, her dedication to excellence and acknowledgement to different points of view, as well as her ability to bring people together, left an indelible mark on the lives of residents in our community and her fellow council members. The city celebrates her service on the council and her involvement in the governance of Duval. Her work has laid a solid foundation for continued progress and has set a standard of excellence that will inspire future council members. We are confident that the positive impact of her contributions will be felt for many years to come. In witness there, I have here to set my hand and cause the seal of Duval, Amy Ocklander, and Ron Mercer, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. Jennifer Naplin as well. Jennifer, I've known personally as a neighbor, obviously served on council. She's brought sort of a unique perspective. I think she's always down in sort of the weeds through the numbers and has sort of gratefully taken that off my plate in terms of doing some due diligence. But if you want to come up, I have a certificate I want to read to you. I am Ocklander, Mayor of the City of Duval, Washington. Appreciation for the 8 years of service given to the Duval City Council. Extend my heartfelt gratitude along with that of the Duval City Council and city government for the significant contributions to our community's growth and development accomplished by Jennifer Naplin. Councilmember Naplin has served on the Duval City Council with attention to the duties of the position. During her tenure, she has taken part in important council discussions and decisions and has offered her many contributions as the council carried out its work. During her tenure, Councilmember Naplin demonstrated a commitment to fiscal responsibility and the careful management of public resources. The city acknowledges her years of service on the council and her involvement in the governance of Duval. Her participation has been part of the work that has shaped the council's direction and supported the city's ongoing efforts to be transparent, accountable, and responsive. In witness, therefore, I have hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Duval to be affixed. Amy Ocklander, Ron Mercer, and Ron Mercer, Mayor Pro Tem Duval. And last but not least.
Check out now.
That won't make the budget. Amy McHenry. I, Amy McHenry, Mayor of and City of Duval, in appreciation for the 8 years of service given to the Duval City Council, including as Mayor Pro Tem, extend my heartfelt gratitude along with that of the Duval City Council and city government for the significant contributions to the community's growth and development accomplished by Amy McHenry. Councilmember McHenry's unwavering commitment, thoughtful insights, and tireless efforts have played a crucial role in shaping Duval. Throughout Councilmember McHenry's tenure with the City Council, her exceptional leadership and collaborative experience have been invaluable. She has consistently demonstrated a passion for her work and a mark on the lives of residents in our community and her fellow council members. We celebrate her dedication to public service and to our city. Her work has laid a solid foundation for continued progress and has set a standard of excellence that will inspire future council members. We are confident that the positive impact of her contributions will be felt for many years to come. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of Duval to be affixed, Amy Ockerlander and Ron Mercer, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. And I also, have had the pleasure of sort of going on several trips recently with Amy where we sort of divide and conquered a lot of the responsibilities and had some great conversations, thoughtful conversations. So I'm, we'll miss the deliberative process here, but looking forward to the tenure as incoming mayor of the city of Duval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a little time if anybody would like to make remarks. We have about 20 minutes. If anybody would like to speak to any of our council members' contributions or to the mayor.
Or if any council members themselves.
Or if council would like to.
Yeah, I do have one more thing I do want to say.
Oh.
I neglected to acknowledge my family in the room and my parents and my husband and my children. And especially as we're about to swear in a new mayor, new council members, and those that are returning. I just want to express how important it is to have a family that is supportive of the work that you do and the time it takes to be on council, as well as in particular being mayor. When you are mayor, there is no time off and your family feels it for the entire time. And without that support, you can't be successful. So I just want to acknowledge that and share that, and also share that with Amy's family. And sometimes those phone calls do come in the middle of the night, and sometimes, family gatherings and events do have to get put on hold in order to take care of the needs of the city. And without that support, you can't be successful. So thank you.
Would anybody would like to make any comments? Otherwise, we'll move to swearing in our, oh, yes, please, Jeff.
Finding myself at this podium, they can't stop me from coming up. So I don't really have any speeches prepared. I wasn't even thinking about coming up to speak until just recently, but I wanted to say thank you to all the council members here, but particularly to Mayor Amy for getting the Cultural Commission back up and running. And not only that, having the faith that 4 people who have never done this before wouldn't fill the valley completely with giraffes. We have done what we have because of your faith, everyone's faith, and mentorship, and your belief in that we would do the right thing. And I'm very happy to report that we are making the town better because of you, because of the staff's mentorship, because of Amy, because of Jen, because of Carol. Carol's mentorship. Jen has been very, very friendly with trying to get me involved in things. Amy's been there also for mentorship, and again, the other Amy's faith. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. And the Cultural Commission is not going to stop until we actually fill the giraffe. I just wanted to let you all know. Thank you for all the faith you put in us, and we're hoping we're doing a good job because we've never done this before.
And before you sort of move to the swearing, the one other piece I'd like to add, again, it's wonderful having everyone in the room, family and friends and community. I think the other piece, that I think we've seen is from an engagement perspective and involved perspective, just don't let this be the only time that we see, if you have an opportunity to, something to share in the council meeting, and you just want to see how the city's going to stay more involved, again, you're welcome at any time, and I think these are great events when the community comes out to support the council and family members, but don't let this be the only time that you come back. So with that, I'll sort of turn it over to the swearing in. Oh,
Sorry, I was just saying slow, but anyway, I started on council, some 5+ years ago. And, Amy Ottlander, Mayor Amy, took me under her wing and gave me great counseling and was an excellent mentor, for me. It was a difficult transition for me. I had never done anything like this, before. And, my background did not prepare me for a lot of things, a lot of the challenges that happened with council, a lot of the hard decisions that had to be made. Throughout that all, Amy was one of my guiding lights, and I very much appreciate her for getting me off on the right foot. For the ex-council members, Jennifer, Amy, Carol, you guys helped me learn a lot. I can't say just how much it's been a tremendous experience for me as far as just a learning experience, hopefully making me a better council member, but also just a better person in general. And I appreciate my time with all of you. So thank you very much.
All right, I think, Mayor, we are ready to swear in some new council members and the mayor.
Let's do Amy last.
Okay.
And, sure, we'll do it straight. I don't know what order. All right, Councilmember Olin. Would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Adam Olin,
I, Adam Olin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of the office of council member
perform and discharge the office and duties of council members
according to the law and the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my ability.
Welcome officially for 4 years.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's it. Also.
Here, come in.
It's Wood.
Thank you very much. This one is yours.
All right. Thank you.
Congratulations. Councilmember Supple, you're next. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Mike Supple,
I, Mike Supple,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of
and the
Washington
Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of the office of council member
perform and discharge the duties of the council member
according to the law and the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my ability.
Congratulations on another
Thank
term.
you.
All right, and now we have Lauren Kozlowski. If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Lauren Kozlowski,
I, Lauren Kozlowski,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties of the office of council member
and discharge the duties of the council member
according to the law and the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
And this video, and I'll email you about that. So, yeah.
We have one more new council member, and of note, Lauren and Paul are both members of the planning commission, so as you can see, there's a pipeline to service on the council, and the planning commission is often where people come from. So Paul, would you please join me? If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Paul Wiggins,
I, Paul Wiggins,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of the office of council member.
discharge and
The duties of the
the
office
duties
of
of the
council
office
member
of council member
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Right about. This one? This one is for you, and I'll email it at the end. All right, thanks, John.
And last but not least, it is my distinct honor to swear in our new mayor, Amy McHenry. So before I do that, I want to say that Amy, I've known Amy, 9 or 10 years now, since slightly before she got on council. And it took us many years to get to know each other well. But when she became mayor pro tem and the longest serving mayor pro tem in the city of our history, we got to know each other quite well. And I have to say that the more I get to know Amy, the more I like her and appreciate her. She has learned and grown so much as a council member these last 8 years, that when she expressed that she was interested in becoming the next mayor, I knew that not only she was ready to crush it. And I have no doubt that she's going to serve this community well and set the bar even higher than it's been set before for leadership. And really am looking forward to seeing everything that you do for this community over the next 4 years. So, will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? No crying. I'll try. I, Amy McHenry,
I, Amy McHenry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge the duties of the office of mayor
perform and discharge the duties of the office of mayor
according to the law and the best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my ability.
How about?
And Ron, can you bring the package up? Bubble wrap?
And this one's for you.
Bubble wrap.
Thank you very much. Oh,
We got too many things going on.
I was wondering what this is over.
And this is something that staff had made for you. And this is a signed gavel, or a gavel with inscribed with your term of office for 2026 to 2030. So use it well, use it judicially, and use it hopefully sparingly.
They hopefully not. Thank you all. Oh man, I didn't prepare anything and I'll keep it really short. It's been an honor working with everybody. I'm keeping it short so I don't cry. This has been a long road. It's been great working with everyone. I'm excited to work with you all in the future. Thank you all for your support.
So we got through this actually a lot quicker than I anticipated. It looks like there were quite a few good conversations going on when we broke. There's still food and conversations we had. So give a little time back so folks can mix and mingle, and then we can break maybe 10 minutes before the hour to give an opportunity to reset for council. 6:52 PM, I'm going to formally call the Duval Committee of the Whole workshop to a close at 6:52 PM. And that provides about 8 minutes before we start the formal meeting.
Let me know when you're ready. Ready? Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, December 2nd, December 2nd, 2025 council meeting to order. Would you all please rise and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Overlander.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer.
Here.
Councilmember Olin.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember McHenry.
Here.
Councilmember Supple.
Here.
Councilmember Naplin.
Here. We have a quorum. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, we'll move right into proclamations. The first one we have for today is Extraordinary Work Team Recognition Day. Whereas the city of Duval is made strong, resilient, and vibrant by the dedication, professionalism, and integrity of its employees who serve our residents each day with care, creativity, commitment, and a deep sense of public duty. And whereas behind every service delivered, every program implemented, and every improvement made to our city, there stands a team of individuals who collaborate, problem solve, and support one another to make Duval a community we are proud to call home. And whereas the city's employees demonstrate extraordinary teamwork across all departments, working together to maintain our infrastructure, steward our natural resources, ensure public safety, foster community engagement, and provide essential services that uphold the quality of life in Duval. And whereas these individuals not only carry out their duties with professionalism and excellence, but also embody the spirit of public service, showing compassion, innovation, and dedication even in the face of challenges. And whereas Extraordinary Work Team Recognition Day is an opportunity for the City Council, leadership, and residents alike to express sincere gratitude for the collaborative spirit, hard work, and deep sense of purpose that define Duval's workforce. And whereas by honoring our extraordinary teams, we celebrate the shared values of service, cooperation, and respect that make Duval not only a great place to work, but a great place to live. Now, therefore, I, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, hereby proclaim December 4th, 2025 as Extraordinary Work Team Recognition Day in the City of Duval. I encourage all residents to join in recognizing and thanking our exceptional city employees for their outstanding contributions, steadfast professionalism, and the pride they take in making Duval a truly extraordinary community. I am grateful to have had the opportunity to have worked with this amazing group of professionals that work for our city and make it a better place to live. Next proclamation we have this evening is for Hanukkah. Whereas Hanukkah, also known as the Festival of Lights, is an 8-day celebration of hope, faith, and perseverance. It commemorates the rededication of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem and the miraculous oil that burned for 8 nights. And whereas this cherished holiday reminds us that even in times of great challenge, light can endure and shine brighter than darkness, symbolizing resilience, renewal, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And whereas the lighting of the menorah, a powerful symbol of hope and joy, illuminates homes and hearts throughout the city of Duval, it fosters a sense of connection among families and friends, encouraging reflection, gratitude, and peace. Whereas Hanukkah is also a time to celebrate the richness of Jewish heritage and tradition. It's an opportunity to honor the significant contributions of Jewish Americans who have helped shape our nation, our communities, and our shared pursuit of justice and understanding. And whereas the City of Duval proudly recognizes and embraces the values that Hanukkah represents: faith, courage, kindness, and the belief that even the smallest light can dispel the most profound darkness. This proclamation is a testament to our commitment to these values. Whereas this season offers an opportunity for people of all faiths and backgrounds to reflect on the importance of unity, compassion, and mutual respect, and to come together to celebrate the diverse traditions that make Duval a warm and welcoming community for all. Now, therefore, I, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, hereby proclaim December 14th through December 22nd, 2025 is Hanukkah in the City of Duval. I encourage all residents to join in honoring this meaningful celebration of faith, light, and perseverance, and to reflect on the ways we can bring more light into our community and the world. And finally, we have one recognizing Christmas. Whereas each December, as winter settles softly upon the Snoqualmie Valley, the city of Duval glows with the gentle light of the season, from twinkling windows to evergreen boughs and the laughter of neighbors filling the chill air with warmth. Whereas Christmas is a time of wonder and reflection, a season when hearts open to hope, generosity, and goodwill, reminding us that the truest gifts we give and receive are those of kindness, love, and understanding. And whereas in Duval, the spirit of Christmas can be found in every small act that brightens another's day. A warm meal shared, a hand extended in friendship, a moment of listening, or a gesture of compassion that echoes far beyond its giving. And whereas from the barns and forested hills to the quiet bends of the Snoqualmie River, Christmas in our valley feels touched by something timeless, an enduring sense of community, belonging, and peace that unites us all. And whereas this season calls upon each of us to see the good in one another, to forgive freely, to lift those in need, and to be the light that dispels loneliness and brings joy to others. And whereas the city of Duval cherishes the warmth of the season and celebrates the spirit of togetherness that makes our city and our valley such a wonderful place to call home. Now, therefore, I, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, hereby proclaim December 25th, 2025 as Christmas in the City of Duval. I encourage all residents to celebrate with hearts full of gratitude, to share acts of kindness, great and small, and to let the light of Christmas shine brightly throughout our homes, our valley, and our lives. And moving on to comments from the audience. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak tonight? Okay, and I will save some time and skip the reading the rules and comments from the audience into the record, and we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to schedule items, I'll have a brief report. I said much of what I wanted to say earlier this evening, but as far as the business side of things, I want to share and remind folks that the Sound Cities Association annual networking dinner is tomorrow evening in Isla. I know there's a few of us going, so definitely looking forward to that. And we have Light Up Duval coming on Friday, so hope to see everyone there as well. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to the city administrator.
Thank you. Good evening, council, mayor, staff, members of the community, Cynthia McNabb, city administrator. And we'll go ahead and get started differently tonight. I'm gonna start with community development. We've had long public works updates. We're gonna skip public works tonight, give an update of community development. So we have an exciting application that came in. So we've done the site plan review for a 2,200 square foot indoor sports facility. They'll be up near the Big Rock development. Going to support badminton, soccer, pickleball, and cricket. So we're excited to get this project in and see how it develops for our community.
22,000 square feet.
What did I say?
2,200.
Oh yeah, it's bigger than 2,200.
Half acre inside.
All right, next slide. So we have quite a few slides on the comprehensive plan, and so I wanted to provide an extensive update. First, I want to thank City Engineer Larissa Grindell. She's done a lot of work, and we've had a lot of conversations in the last week. And so I thought we'd take the opportunity to walk through some of the issues that we are working on, set the stage for the work that is going to be ahead as we enter into the new year. So Larissa and I met with the Department of Commerce representative on yesterday to present a draft work plan in response to our appeal. Overall, the work plan was generally deemed reasonable with a couple of caveats, of course. So our new draft land capacity analysis is going to, the way we are calculating it is going to deviate slightly, but within methodology from the percentages that we chose several years ago for the Florida area ratio and market factor assumptions. So that's based on our assessment of the local development patterns and contextual knowledge of our land capacity analysis. So Burke is doing a peer review of our work. They're creating a memo now that will be provided to council on why we're going to choose not a different methodology, but different percentages that are more aligned to current conditions in Duval. From Commerce's perspective, that's kind of the gateway into the work plan. So Commerce needs to see that King County will agree to us deviating from the percentages that we originally discussed with them. So that's the work that's ahead, is to provide the memo that Burke is putting together, provide our new draft land capacity analysis to King County. If King County agrees that, again, it's within their methodology, but slightly different calculations, if they agree that we can use these new percentages, Commerce will be okay then moving it into a phase 1, 2, 3 work plan. So we're kind of in a holding pattern until that work with King County is done, and then we'll move into a work plan. The last point on this slide, so if King County does not agree to the adjustment of those percentages, we really don't have a choice other than to try for reconciliation. There's more on reconciliation. But the new calculations are really the only way we can get to our land capacity analysis within the city, is kind of changing our methodology on those two calculations, market rate assumption and Florida area ratio. Next slide. Okay, so pausing on the Commerce process for a minute, we've had additional information from King County. Larissa has been in contact with their regional planning department. So on the reconciliation process, we have discovered that we can pursue reconciliation at any time. We don't have to get on a particular docket as we previously believed. And that's because they don't really have a docket for reconciliation. So King County has taken the position that you can file for reconciliation whenever you want, but they reserve the right to say no. We're being told that the county's position was that Snoqualmie and Carnation were exceptions, and those requests were granted because there were true mathematical errors with how their numbers were calculated. Moving forward, the county's current position, at least as of this week, is that requests for reconciliation are not ongoing. There is not a docket for it, and they are not guaranteed. So we can ask, and the county can say no. For us to get to yes with the county has their kind of standards for us. Duval would have to show that we have unexpected circumstances that have arisen, or that the adopted targets conflict with some other area of the Growth Management Act and the goals that are within the Growth Management Act, that we have a demonstrated need for change. So something like mathematical error would be, one of those reasons. Requested changes support the regional growth strategy and protect the integrity of the target setting process. So our process can't then shift the burden onto other cities. And in general, they're not looking for kind of county redistribution of the housing targets across the county until we have met as a county all the housing targets. So we can't burden shift to other cities in this process. Can we wait till the end? Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so that's kind of the county process. So then going back to Commerce. So to resolve our appeal, we will have 1 year from today, or December 31st, but probably, mid-December before everybody goes on holiday, to produce the following: a new zoning map and municipal code changes to support the zoning changes that would come through the land capacity analysis, meaning rezoning certain sections of the city for different use and different density. We have to update all relevant elements of the comprehensive plan to accommodate changes that arise from this new land capacity analysis, which would probably focus on capital facilities, so how our utilities would be impacted, do an EIS amendment and the transportation section. So Transpo would have to recalculate our transportation analysis, and then we'd make an amendment to that element of the comprehensive plan. And then we are no longer able to, so Commerce's original guidance was you have to identify in your code all of the barriers to affordable housing and then show your work that you know what they are and that you will change them. After the Kitsap and Mercer Island decisions from the Growth Management Hearings Board, now Commerce's direction is not only do you have to identify all the barriers that you have in your code to affordable housing, you have to cure them. And we are going to have to produce code changes for all of those barriers as implemented and adopted by council. So quite a different change from just identifying and acknowledging that you have barriers to actually fixing them. Next slide. So Larissa has done a fantastic job, and we provided this list to Commerce. We don't know for sure yet that it's the full list, but this is where we have started. These are all the barriers to affordable housing that we have in our code today, or our state law change requirements as part of this suite of regulations relative to affordable housing. So these all must be updated and adopted by December of 2026. So impact fees, you're here. There's good news in that we're doing a lot of the work right now. So impact fees, you're hearing tonight, phase 1 and phase 2 of parking amendments. You're going to hear a presentation on the first part of the parking changes that are required by state law. Co-living, you're going to hear a presentation on that tonight. Permit processing, which is a rewrite of DMC 1408. That is under revision. We're talking about it internally tomorrow, but it's a full rewrite. We're really close to having a draft that we can present to the Planning Commission and Council. Design standards, RFP was in the packet. We had some corrections. I'll make a correction of those corrections, and we will post that RFP probably on Friday. So that work will get started. Manufactured home park designation, we need to update both the map and the text in the code to allow for that. We have a barrier to housing in our infill development rules. So we need to modify that section of code. It's very old code and pretty outdated. So we need to take another look at that. And then we need to do an affordable housing incentive program that comes with a whole suite of changes on zoning regulations to allow permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and emergency housing, emergency shelters, generally in areas of the city where you otherwise would allow for a hotel. You have to allow those uses. So that's what we know so far that is the work plan in 2026 to resolve the appeal. Next slide. So there's some more, I think, at least neutral news. So while we're under appeal, we are not non-compliant. That double negative is intended. So we are not compliant, but we are also not out of compliance, which means you only are out of compliance if the Growth Management Hearings Board has issued a finding against you. We don't have a finding against us. We're under appeal and negotiation and trying to develop a work plan that is acceptable to the Department of Commerce. So while we are working through that process, we are still eligible for grants and loans that otherwise you wouldn't get if you were out of compliance with your comp plan. So our next steps is once we get the okay for King County, we can get an okay on our work plan from Commerce. We would then bring that work plan to City Council, receive approval from you all to move forward. While also simultaneously, looking at the reconciliation process, because we've committed to do that. And then as long as we are actively working through our plan, so every 90 days, we have to do an extension of our appeal. Commerce does not intend to bring our case to the hearings board for a finding against us, as long as we are proving that we're diligently working through our work plan. So that is update on the comp plan. Happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. And luckily I have Larissa here who also can chime in if I got anything.
Yeah, so one thing popped out, it was 2 slides back. If we can go back 2 slides.
I think on the reconciliation.
Maybe one more back. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so, well, actually it wasn't on, there's kind of 2-part. I just want to clarify that, when you say our housing targets, you mean our affordability target. Is that correct? Because we are on track to exceed our housing target, which is what the whole regional transportation, all of that plan was built on how many units we are going to build, and we are already scheduled to exceed that. And so if we have to then build all of these affordability units, it pushes us way over our actual housing number. And so I just want to make sure that like we are meeting our housing number, it's just the affordability component. Is that fully?
Our whole appeal, yes, you are accurate. Our whole appeal is not on housing that is market rate or above, it's 80% and below. And so it's really the middle housing, supported emergency housing, and low income housing, which is what the state, King County, and PSRC says we didn't plan accordingly in our comp plan for.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to establish that before I provided my comment, which is I look at the first bullet point and it says the adopted target conflicts with other GMA goals. One of the goals is that rural island cities would not kind of overdevelop. We are not going to be like they aren't planning on providing, you know, high frequency transit. They aren't planning on improving any of the roads. Like, I think that there is an effort within GMA to contain small isolated cities. And so that is a goal of GMA. And so I feel like in order for us to meet these affordability targets, we are going to have to so far exceed our housing target that is also a GMA goal, that those two things are in conflict. And so I feel like we would have potentially a really good argument to say we have conflicting goals, and if we try to meet the affordability goal, we are going to greatly exceed our housing target, which is what everything else in GMA was built on.
So one area that we've resolved that I think initially we were concerned about was that if we had to find capacity in our urban growth area and grow the city into the annexable areas, that we would violate the GMA for exactly that reason, that we're supposed to kind of contain within and not grow into the urban growth areas. But I think, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we cannot use the urban growth areas as capacity for our affordable housing numbers, because King County counted our growth areas as their numbers. So we must find it in the city limits as the city exists right now.
Councilmember Supple, let's go ahead.
Can I just point one thing out? I hear what you're saying, Councilmember Naplin, because this was the conversation that we had during the comprehensive plan process.
Yeah.
And the one thing that has been explained and added clarity from the Commerce guidance is that we do not need to count every single unit. We need to show capacity through policy and code that we can accommodate those units that are within the 0 to 80 AMI. And that means that we have to have the more affordable housing incentive programs, tax allowances, credits for multifamily, and those types of policies in order to show that we can accommodate it. It doesn't mean that it will be built. The assumption is not that every single unit will be built on top of the other pipeline projects that we have. It is that those numbers were allocated to the city within those bands of affordable percentages for the AMI, and that's what we have to show we can accommodate in our policy. So I don't know if that adds kind of clarity, but we've gone down that same road that you mentioned about the conflicting goals with us essentially adding numbers to targets, and it's not. It's showing that we can accommodate that capacity within those ranges and have supporting policy to do it.
Councilmember Supple?
Yeah, I'm just kind of following what Larissa said. So I was wondering why we had to add affordable housing to our existing target housing, like you're stacking them. And it didn't seem to make sense. I wasn't sure why we couldn't just take percentage of the target housing and make that affordable instead of stacking one on top of the other.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer?
Yeah, sort of my comment, I think what Larissa sort of confirmed what we've talked about a lot is it's more of it's a numbers game, making the math work. Though it's not necessarily the potential versus actual build out. My specific question was just with the change that came from Commerce around the code revision versus the identifying things in the code. There's obviously cost, and we were looking to stagger some of that work further out in the pipeline. I don't expect anything because we have some of the budget tonight, but I was just curious if this is unplanned work, which will associate a cost in an RP. Is this have a budgetary impact? I mean, it may be too early to tell because you're still working through the inventory, but.
So I can offer a preliminary assessment. So in the budget, we had already contracted for planning consultant work for BHC. And we had already budgeted for the cost of the RFP for design review because we knew those state law changes were coming. So that money is already budgeted. BHC has been helping us with the absence of a director do some work. So I'm hoping we don't blow through that budget faster than I would like to, but I think we're probably going to be close. And then the design guidelines was already in the budget and already planned. The good news is internally and with BHC support, we've done a lot of the work, and Larissa also has provided drafts of some of the other code changes. So I think the impact is likely to be other things that we would like to do will have to be pushed to 27 in favor of things we must do as part of the appeal.
So less about cost and more prioritization exercise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll pause there. Are there any other questions? Okay.
I'm gonna see if the rest of council has questions. Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, I got a comment and I guess more comments than a question. Anyway, it appears the reconciliation process holds little value for us from what we're seeing. Is that your take?
So a couple things have come out recently. So this is not really speculation, but we don't know a lot right now. The team that does regional planning in King County has had some reorganization with the new executive. So we're not entirely sure where that team will land as part of the new executive's leadership team. But there does seem to be a change of direction that we're picking up on about whether the county is interested in accepting more reconciliation requests. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. It's just that I think the county is taking a different approach now that they've gone through the first few reconciliations and is, I think, of the mindset that the cities at this point should figure it out. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. But the language that we're hearing now is more of a, you can ask and we can say no. That's a newish tone, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, what worries me is we kind of have all of our eggs in one basket here, so to speak. There's really not an alternative to what you've outlined here. So it does sound promising, but as you said, there's no sure deal here. So we could be turned down. And at that point, I don't know what we would pursue. Reconciliation, I guess.
Well, the thing about reconciliation is we have to know what we're asking the county to do. And so at this point, the Burke analysis and the analysis by Larissa is we can create capacity. Again, not that it will be built, but we can create capacity within the city limits if we modify the assumptions that we made, I think, back in 2021. But we have to have the county say that they will agree to our modification. If they don't, I'm not entirely sure where we go from there, and we'll have to figure that out. Because Commerce will not accept our plan if we do not have an email or something from King County that says,
Yeah.
so that's the first step.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Napoli?
Yeah, could we go back to the screen that showed kind of the work plan? Yes, oh. One back, there we go. So when I look at this, I'm thinking in my head, we have tried reducing barriers to affordable housing in the past. And, you know, we increased density, we developed an R20, we increased height, we did different things in the last comprehensive plan, hoping to get affordable housing. We reduced a lot of barriers, for sure. And what happened is market rate developers took advantage of those exact same things, and they built a bunch of very dense, very tall, market rate $1 million places. So when I look at this, I'm skeptical, and I think, are these also things that would then actually accelerate market rate housing in Duval? Because the market rate developers would take advantage of a bunch of these things. And so we would actually be encouraging becoming even more out of compliance.
Go ahead, City Administrator. So of these, some are barriers we have identified, but others are on a list that Commerce has published, and it's on the MRC's website too. If you go to affordable housing, they've listed all of the new state law changes that we have to do. So impact fees is required by new legislative initiative. We don't have a choice. We have to do the changes to impact fees. The parking amendments are now required by state law. Co-living required by state law. Permit processing, we were required actually to get that done in June of 2025. We're out of compliance. We have to get this done. We don't have a choice. Design standards, also changing state law. We must change it. We don't have an option. We will be out of compliance with state law. We have about 6 months. Manufactured home, that's a choice we're making to preserve the zoning designation for manufactured homes. Infill is work we've identified that we have old code that will prohibit building actually affordable smaller homes on some of our infill lots. And then the Affordable Housing Incentive Program is another state law change that we don't have a choice on. We have to do it. Thank you. Councilmember Owen?
I just want to call out, similar to what Councilmember Napoli said, a lot of the tree work, if we're adding density in order to accommodate these goals, then, you know, there's a level of service for the transportation plan, things like that. And so obviously that potentially requires, well, it sounds like we're already planning rework for that. The other set of goals that might be affected in the comprehensive plan are environmental, right? If we're adding density, then are we losing more trees? Is there less canopy? You know, there's those kinds of impacts too. So I guess I just want to call that out for sake of attention. So as we're reworking these, we don't start cutting back on environmental standards we have in place and push ourselves out of compliance either with ourselves or with.
Yeah, so if you go back, I think one slide from here, we do identify the EIS doing another environmental impact statement. We're gonna have to amend that potentially. We don't know yet what impacts these new zoning densities will have on environmental, but that is one that we're gonna have to go back and reassess. And same with transportation and capital facilities, like what are the impacts on our utilities? We have to go back, and it's not just that we have to assess them, we have to amend the comprehensive plan as the suite of documents that we deliver to Commerce in a year.
Do you know if we can lighten our standard? I don't want to, but can we lighten our standards in terms of environmental policy or increase traffic density in order to satisfy these? Or is that enough that we could say, hold on, yeah, maybe it's not appropriate to add more units?
That would be what you would seek in the reconciliation process, is to reduce the number so you reduce the impact on utilities, environment, and transportation. So those are the arguments you would make to King County in the reconciliation process. Commerce is slightly different. Commerce has a long list of guidance about what has to go in each element. And it would be hard to deviate from the Commerce guidance. And the only way really to get I think relief is if King County would agree to lower your target numbers, but again, it feels, and this is a feeling fact, not a fact, say that candidly. It feels to me as though King County is of the position that the cities can do the work and are not super receptive to reconciliation appeals. But that doesn't mean we don't know. Thank you. All right, couple more slides. Beth, want to share with the finance department?
Yeah, Beth McMahon, Finance Director. Basically, we kicked off our audit in August. It's been a long road, but we are continuing work and are hoping to wrap up very soon. We have our exit conference number 13.
Clerk?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public, Secretary, City Clerk. We're gonna be having a training on March 7th from 9 to 1 on everyone's favorites, Robert's Rules of Order and the Public Records Act. We've already engaged with Jurassic Parliament, who has done the training before. And the training will be open to not only council, but also all boards and commissions in the vault. So just please mark your calendars and do start practicing those roars. And also, Agnes, please. Also, as a reminder, we are doing a donation drive for presents on behalf of Acres of Diamonds, as well as a food drive for Hope Link. We can resend the information. We do have 2 bins in City Hall if you want to drop something off to make someone's holiday a little brighter. Thank you very much.
Next slide, I'm gonna hand it over to the chief. He had an update to provide on resident disputes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. First of all, I want to apologize to Councilmember Naplin. She did send a request a while ago, and I did get that request because of holidays and things. I land on my desk. I'm sorry I couldn't get to it. So what I did ask is if I could just present on that request here for the council today. The question that was proposed was what policies and practices the city or the police department have in place and when confronted with a dispute between 2 parties or one or more parties is allegedly harassing the other and or begins utilizing police resources to harass the other party. And is there any legislative action that you're aware of that addresses that concern? First of all, I want to just give a clarification of what is technically harassment in our state, so we're all talking the same sheet of music. Harassment, as defined by the Revised Code of Washington, is a threat. It's a threat to harm or a threat to destroy property. An individual says, I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to hit you, I'm going to break your leg, or whatever the case might be, or I'm going to go and destroy your fence in your yard. There's 2 things that have to happen. One is the person has to be capable of committing that threat, and that person has to believe that the threat's going to be completed. When police get called to in certain situations, I think under this type of situation you're talking about, it doesn't, people refer to it as harassment, but it doesn't fit the RCW as harassment. When somebody has damage that occurs to their property, that's actually malicious mischief. That's damage to the property that we do once it's committed. So a situation that we're kind of talking about might be if somebody calls the police department numerous times and wants to report something that's going on with a neighbor, and police respond, and that person feels they're being harassed by the police department when they respond to that situation. We don't threaten to hurt anybody or to cause any damage. So it technically isn't harassment by law, but people kind of lump that into that category as feeling harassed. When it's more of they're complaining about me, the police are always showing up. I believe that somebody's using the police to harm me in some way, to become a nuisance and going through that process, or they're not believing me. We do respond to a lot of those things all the time. And we respond to harassment. We also respond to neighbor disputes because we're the one that's on 24 hours a day. So often we get the call no matter when it occurs. When we go there, we have to pay attention to what the initial call is about and whether it is actually legitimate or true. And the police officers have to take everything from the beginning as legitimate until we investigate otherwise and figure out whether it's legitimate or not. And sometimes it could be that somebody feels that a neighbor is doing this. I know it's that person, but I've never seen them do it, but I know they're doing this. Or they're always calling on me because they believe that, you know, my lights are too loud or too bright, or my music's too loud, when really isn't occurring. We still have to go and investigate that. And oftentimes we develop what's called a pattern. So we look at that type of situation and figure out whether or not it is a pattern that is consistently incorrect, or if the pattern is correct. And if we develop some type of case and interview people and go through that process to investigate it, if we can determine that it is legitimate, we want to talk to both parties for one thing, then we have a recourse where we can actually charge somebody for the damage that occurs. Or if it is harassment, technically somebody threatens damage to property or damage to an individual or puts them in fear, we can pursue charges for that type of a violation. Oftentimes, just somebody saying that person that's calling this in is doing this to harass me may not necessarily be enough for us to take action on. We have to have some independent information or evidence to follow through on that. And just because we get called a number of times doesn't necessarily fall in that category of harassment. It is very difficult for police agencies and cities to prove that by calling the police for what the person perceives as a legitimate complaint is harassment to that other individual. It's difficult for us to prove that. So we do take everything when it comes forward at the beginning as being truthful and otherwise. And we do have to respond to every complaint that occurs out there. Otherwise, if we don't, it's going to be that one that we miss that is legitimate and could be a problem as a result of that process. When neighbors have disputes, they also have civil recourse where they can apply for what's called an anti-harassment order, where it has a little bit more leeway in that process where they go before a judge and request an order be issued that covers very specific items, such as that person can't be within a certain distance from that person. They can't go to their work. They can't continually make a false complaint, those type of things. A judge has a lot more leeway to set that order than I do as a police officer going through that process. So we do evaluate every call we go to. We do try to remain neutral in certain things. I know that sometimes police officers, somebody in uniform that shows up with a badge and gun, is not received well by certain individuals for whatever reason. And we understand that, but we try to take the objective and look through that process and try to track the number of complaints we have and whether they're legitimate or not, or if we can prove they're legitimate. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Yes. Good.
All right, next slide. Just a couple more updates. So Light Up Duval is this Friday. We have more food and craft vendors than we've had in years past. So Rita and I keep trying to move it into more of a Christmas market. You can come, you can shop. So we're really excited. We've had, I think, 8 new vendors reach out to actually sell food or crafts. We're having a coffee cart to do coffee and hot chocolate. We got sponsored again by PSE. We're very excited to have them partner with us. This year we have a new feature. We have a inflatable snow globe that you can get into, take selfies inside the snow globe, and we used our sponsorship money to support that, as well as just upgrading the lights and a couple more things. So we're also doing for the first time a gingerbread contest. We have Cece's and a couple other celebrity guests that are going to judge the community gingerbread contest. So if you are so inclined, for people who have a hard time with buying a gingerbread kit, we did buy some with some of our sponsorship money for community members who may not be able to afford those big kits. We have some in City Hall. So please come, enter, show us your cool stuff. City Council recruitment for our new council members open now until December 26th. The Duval Historical Society in the city of Duval will host the Passport Program Awards on February 9th, 2026. So all the people that did the passport, went to all those farms and supported our local businesses, will do an awards program that night. It's a Monday. And then finally, we are having our New Year's Eve celebration on December 30th or 31st on New Year's Eve from, I think it's going to be 6 to 9 at Depot Park. So we're going to have a DJ. We're going to put our new movie screen out, watch the ball drop, New York time. We have hot chocolate. We're going to light a bonfire in the fire area, and hopefully it'll be the first time we do it, and hopefully people will like it. So I'm excited. A way to bring family down and celebrate in a safe way on New Year's Eve. The next slide. And the final slide is I did have Rita put together some numbers on our events for 2025. And so this is kind of an amalgam of all of our events put together. So we had $16,000 roughly in sponsorships this year, $63,000 in grants, in-kind donations, which thank you to Amarillo, did quite a bit of in-kind for our artists at Summer Stage. Our estimated attendance was about 15,000. Our volunteer hours, so staff volunteer hours was 36, and then other volunteers 20, with the total cost of events at 77,000. So we, between sponsorship, grants, and in-kind, we actually covered the majority of the cost of our events, and came out a little ahead, close to $2,000 ahead. So, and with that, if there are any other questions, otherwise it was a long report tonight. Apologies for taking so much time.
I just want to make one comment about the community events is that several years ago, Summer Stage was on the chopping block, and some of our community events were on the chopping block. And one of the goals long-term was to get enough grants and sponsorships to help these events be self-sustaining and relieve pressure on the general fund. This is the first year that we've been in the green completely for these events. And I think that speaks volumes to the work that our staff here has done to facilitate those relationships, and doing the extra work to put the grants in place. That is something that I think the city needs to be extremely proud of. And in today's world, with the way that events are sponsored, et cetera, in cities, this is a huge achievement and a huge win for our community and the city. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
All right, any city council members have anything to report this evening? Mayor Pro Tem Mercer?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of give a brief report out on the National League of Cities Conference. It was in Salt Lake City a couple of weeks ago. Obviously it was a different environment, really good turnout. There were about 72 people represented from Washington across the various cities, plus, Amy and I were there. I had an opportunity to participate in some really interesting mobile events. Got to go up to see the Olympic facilities for the 2034 Olympics. There was an opportunity to visit the other side, which I know has been featured on a documentary, but in terms of a combination of affordable housing and or an type of an enterprise, so it was self-sufficient. They operated the whole system without any federal funding, and then there was also an opportunity to walk some of the trails. So there were those, but I think just a lot of great sessions, opportunities to network. We brought back some resources that we want to share. I went to a session on ice in your city. There was some great presentations by Tim Shriver, who's the Special Olympics chair, and the governors of Utah and New Mexico around sort of Disagree Better and the I'm gonna get the other name of the Dignity Index, which was really fascinating. But it's a great opportunity to connect, network, and looks and take away some learnings from other cities that there's a lot of similarities and a lot of differences even on scale, but hopefully there's some ideas that we can take in scale at a smaller state. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Councilmember McHenry?
Yeah, it was a great conference and trip, it's always nice when you have more than one person from your city go because we can divide and conquer and get more information. The stuff available after, like if they give the PowerPoints, just isn't the same as sitting in there and hearing from the experts and what they're talking about. Yeah, I think we did double up. We were on the trailblazing. It was just about parks and trails, and we saw the sickest pump track I've ever seen underneath an overpass, which I know is of big interest to our community here in our mountain biking club. But what else? I did the there's a filmmaking or a film. Utah has a film trail, and I have some neat info. I know our city administrator might be interested in that. Lots of great things have been filmed there, and I know since that was a policy, we recently approved that would be a good thing to look at, you know, how to bring in a little bit more that way. And the other one was it's escaping me at the moment that I went on a Salt Lake one, so just environment and how they are interacting with their environment, how they take that into consideration with development industry, that it can all work together, right? That it's in everyone's best interest to keep your environment healthy. Sometimes we don't always think of that way of developers or heavy industries, but it very much is the case that they are invested as well in keeping Salt Lake healthy. But there were just a lot of great sessions, and I know we're going to try to get together and download it soon because it's a lot. And I think most of you have gone to some kind of conference and you've seen the great classes and courses that they offer. So hopefully everyone can take a chance and go to something, whether it's AWC or NLC, and a lot of great opportunity for learning.
Any other council members want to speak this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. We have a co-living and parking code revision presentation with Madeline Lawrenson, our associate planner. I'm gonna use the restrooms and cut the gavel for a moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, am I good to start? Didn't quite catch that last.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so this is hopefully going to be a quick presentation. I'm just going to talk us through code updates regarding co-living housing and residential parking. As you saw in Cynthia's updates, we are working on quite a few code updates, and these are some of them that are in the works. There's no action that's going to be requested tonight. It's just a presentation to inform you, and then we'll have a future hearings on this, the code updates. Next slide. Okay, so both of these updates are required under state law. The co-living housing updates are required by House Bill 1998, which was passed in 2023 and is codified under RCW 3670A 535. And the residential parking code updates are required by Senate Bill 6015, also passed in 2024 and codified under RCW 3670A 622. Next slide. And I'll just start us off with a couple definitions. So co-living housing is defined for us by RCW. Co-living housing is a residential development with sleeping units that are independently rented and lockable and that provide living and sleeping space. Residents share kitchen facilities with other sleeping units in the building. And co-living housing does not refer to assisted living facilities, adult family homes, or community residential facilities. Those are all kind of regulated and defined separately in our code. And so this, if it sounds a little bit like maybe what you're familiar with as far as a dormitory goes, that's a similar use with shared kitchen facilities as well. So these are going to be smaller units. And the goal of this kind of requirement is to allow a greater kind of variety of housing types, and co-living housing is typically more affordable than some other housing types. And then a sleeping unit, this definition comes from building code. A sleeping unit is a single unit that provides rooms or spaces for one or more persons, includes permanent provisions for sleeping, and can include provisions for living, eating, and either sanitation or kitchen facilities, but not both. Such rooms and spaces that are also part of a dwelling unit are not sleeping units. And this came up in our planning commission review. There were some questions regarding, if bedrooms in a single family home are rented out, is that co-living housing? That's not, because those would be part of a dwelling unit, and the sleeping unit definition kind of sets the co-living housing apart from a situation like that. Next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the requirements from that RCW section. So the largest thing to take away from this is that we need to allow co-living housing on any lot that allows at least 6 multifamily residential units, and kind of how that ends up taking shape in our code is we are going to allow co-living housing in any zone that allows a multifamily residential units. So that's the main takeaway. Additionally, we can't treat a sleeping unit as more than a quarter of a dwelling unit for purposes of calculating dwelling unit density. So typically we have, in some zones, we have a maximum and a minimum density requirement. Typically, for example, with other, say, typical multifamily housing development, you're looking at one bedroom is counting as one dwelling unit for purposes of density, but because these co-living housing units are smaller, we need to treat them as a quarter of a dwelling unit for those calculations' sake. Additionally, we can't require co-living housing to provide more than a quarter of off-street parking spaces per sleeping unit. So you're looking at one required parking space per four sleeping units in a co-living housing development. We also can't hold co-living housing to more restrictive standards than we would for multifamily residential uses. And we may not treat sleeping units as more than a half a dwelling unit for purposes of calculating sewer connections. So we're working with Public Works to make sure that that requirement is met. Next slide. Okay, and then as far as the residential parking requirements go, under that RCW section, parking spaces may not be required to exceed 8 by 20 feet, except for ADA compliance. Currently, our code for a standard parking stall, we require 9 by 20. So that's a reduction in width of 1 foot. This only applies to residential development, and this is our minimum requirement. But for example, if there's demand and a developer wants to add 9 by 20 stalls, they still can do that. We just can't require that of them. Let's see. So parking spaces that count toward minimum parking requirements may be enclosed or unenclosed. So that means we can't require parking stalls to be located in a garage. We are already meeting that requirement. Tandem parking stalls must count toward minimum parking requirements. So as you can see from that lower image, that's an example of tandem parking. Implementation wise, we've already been allowing tandem parking, but we are adding some clarification to make sure that that's in code. Parking spaces that consist of grass block pavers may count toward minimum parking requirements. So you can kind of see an example of that in the upper image. and up to 6 legally non-conforming gravel parking stalls may count toward minimum parking requirements. So those are the main points that you should be aware of. Next slide. Okay, and so what this looks like as far as the code amendments, we are proposing amendments to some of the zoning districts, so DMC 1414 through 1428, and that would allow co-living housing in zones that allow multifamily units. So those zones include R12 and R20, so those are the higher density residential zones. Mixed use 12, mixed use institutional, Midtown, Old Town, Uptown 1, and commercial. So those are all zones that already allow multifamily housing. So we aren't proposing changes to any of the to heights, to design standards, anything that impacts the aesthetics or bulk standards. It's all this is really doing is allowing the interior of a structure, if someone is proposing residential multifamily housing, for them to create smaller units within those structures. And yeah, of course, kind of making sure that we're meeting all of the standards of RCW 3670A 535 in those sections. We're adding a few definitions. So definitions of co-living housing, sleeping units, dormitory, and tandem parking. And then we are also proposing amendments to DMC 1444, which are the parking standards and design to conform with RCW 3670A 622. And those are all found in your packet. You received those proposed code amendments in your packet for this meeting. Next slide. And as far as the timeline goes, so we've created a draft code. We've had staff review internally. We've submitted that draft to the Department of Commerce for a 60-day review. We've created a SEPA checklist and issued a determination of non-significance. And we've had Planning Commission review occur. Today, City Council review is occurring. And then the public hearings at Planning Commission and City Council will be scheduled in January. And then a recommendation will be made after those hearings. So we're on track to get those through pretty quick, which is great because we need to get those through to make sure we're in conformance with the state requirements. And that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
Don't have any questions? Councilmember Olin.
I have one. Thank you for the presentation. I noticed in the council packet when we spoke of dormitories, it seemed like the definition was somewhat specific to educational and public institutions. And I wondered if that was intentional or if we might want to consider opening that up a little bit broader to include nonprofit organizations or religious institutions.
Yeah, so our definition of dormitory, we realized that we needed to include a definition of dormitory because currently we state that in public facility zones, dormitories are allowed as an accessory use, and as an accessory use, probably to educational institutions, which are also allowed in public facility zones. So yeah, basically that definition came about because we didn't have a definition of dormitory, but we listed it as an allowed use in one of our zones. And so that's kind of a cleanup item. And we are differentiating those from co-living housing simply by saying as they're connected to an educational facility, but they're basically the same type of housing as co-living housing. But we're treating it as kind of a subset of co-living housing, simply because that is what is an allowed use in the public facilities zone already. So I guess to your point, adding co-living housing as an allowed use in all of the zones that allow multi-family housing already kind of solves that issue. I don't know if we necessarily need to allow dormitories anywhere else, because dormitories are going to be treated the same as co-living housing. They're basically interchangeable. We just had to differentiate that term because it's in our code somewhere, if that makes sense.
Sure. So you're saying that the language as it is now wouldn't preclude that kind of development in the future?
Yes. Yeah. And if, for example, a nonprofit or religious institution wanted to produce, for example, something like a dormitory or co-living housing, as long as they're in a zone where co-living housing is allowed, they can move forward with that use. That dormitory definition is very specific to our public facility zone, simply because we were already using that term. But they're almost interchangeable.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a sort of you may have addressed the question already. My daughter recently went to San Diego to attend a conference. We were looking for some affordable places for her to stay. They have a lot of like multifamily housing, which is set up like this co-housing. It's almost like a hostel, which they also have a lot of hostels, which also seem like they would meet this definition. Communal kitchen, private sleeping areas, and then security, into the building in terms of, and I just was curious where that fell as well. Like, we don't have hotels, obviously, we have some B&Bs, we have zones, and I think the code would sort of, allow these whether it's a positive or a negative, but whether I can consider those an overlapping, like a hostel or is just another form of co-living in terms of, although that might be, the differentiation is really more around the duration of the lease rather than the type of building. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there are quite a few terms that can be used for co-living housing, and this term is just the one that the state has decided to use. But it sounds like the type of housing that you are describing would fall under this definition. And as long as it falls under this definition, it doesn't really matter what else someone's calling it, as long as it meets the definition of co-living housing, then it'll be allowed in the zones where we're allowing that use.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Naplin?
Yeah, I have my own question, but something you asked that I didn't hear answered was, or maybe I just misunderstood. Your example of more of a hostel is more of a short-term rental situation.
Yeah, they overlap with
Potentially,
our-
and that's not necessarily what we're allowing here. It wouldn't then, just because you can build something that looks like a hostel, doesn't mean that then there will be short-term by the night rentals. That just because you allow co-living doesn't mean you now have to allow, I can rent a room by the night.
Yeah, and
Is that
honestly,
right?
I would need to look into our definitions of hotel that as they currently stand. But yeah, I guess the question of short-term rentals, from what I understand, we have more work to do to allow short-term rentals in the city. And that work hasn't been done yet. But yeah, I can definitely look into kind of how it relates to our definition of hotel, if we have one, and that might be a useful kind of differentiation.
Yeah, because I think we're thinking, if we see this being allowed in R12, does that mean someone can just open up a hostel in R12 because you allow co-living? And I think the answer is maybe not really, because that would require short-term.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to highlight, but
That's what you're
there's
saying,
basically, there's addressing this need, which is more the structure, and then there's a separate body of work in terms of the use, which, but it might address emergency housing, which could be shorter term, so it can still have a.
Right. Yes, and that dovetails with the other work we need to do that you saw earlier in Cynthia's presentation.
I actually have my own question, but I guess it's following up on it, but I can wait if other people.
Yeah, well, let's see if anybody else has any. Councilmember Schaefer?
A couple of comments and I guess a question. I didn't see anything that would preclude short-term rentals or like overnight rentals. I know we have a place in our code that specifies, I think, a minimum of 1 month rental. Does that apply to this co-living as well?
Yeah.
Does anyone know?
Administrator.
We have not done the work to allow short-term rentals yet. We've been, we kind of opened the conversation around Airbnb and short-term rentals. We didn't take it much further. It is on our list of work that we will eventually have to do, but co-living, they're not, it's not the same mechanism in state law to allow for co-living as it is to open the door for Airbnbs. Our code actually, it's kind of a quirky thing about our code. Because we don't have code that allows it, they're not allowed.
Oh. Okay.
So that's the way, that's why we don't have Airbnb, because we don't have an allowance for it in code. So therefore we don't allow it. That's at some point though, I think council will need to take up the issue of short-term rentals.
Well, one of my other concerns is, we're providing under state law, we're providing an open door to developers to develop more residential housing and potentially shortcut our commercial development in a multi-use or commercial zone. We've seen that before, and I'm wondering if there's anything we can do that would require a multi-use or commercially zoned area to have a minimum amount of commercial development. I know we have something in there existing. We have an MU12 that says a minimum of 25% of the usable lot area shall at the ground level should be used for commercial. My concern is I wonder if we need to beef that up, or we can beef it up even under state law.
So I'll turn to Larissa for some additional. So our appeal is not only about affordable housing numbers, but we also have to meet our job target numbers, which requires that we designate certain areas of the city for economic development and jobs. And to some degree, finding capacity for both has been a little challenging because we don't have much land. So we are, as part of our land capacity analysis, having to attend to both at the same time to designate areas that are also for meeting our job numbers. Larissa, do you have anything more you would add to that?
Yes, a little tiny bit of a spoiler alert is some of the things that are going to come out of the land capacity analysis are going to be changes to zones. So it's going to be increasing densities, obviously, to address the affordable units. And then changing the designation of some zone land right now and reserving it for commercial. And then in that same vein, because we will have it all open for the appeal and being able to make sure that we update everything so these policies align with the commerce guidance, is we'll be able to refine those. And like you mentioned, beat it up a little bit and make sure that we're getting the right development, because right now the way that our code is written, we have less horizontal mixed use and we have more specifically vertical mixed use, which means that you can have commercial in certain zones and you have the option to have residential. So those code updates are coming. So it was a great
Okay, okay, thank you.
And if I could add one other point here, yeah, I just wanted to add that we are treating co-living housing just like other multifamily units. So in the zones where currently we require ground floor commercial, we are also requiring ground floor commercial of co-living housing. So specifically these co-living housing updates are not changing the areas where commercial is currently required. If that is helpful, a helpful clarification.
That is, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Napoli?
Yeah, I have a quick comment and then a question. I just, 0.25 parking spot per sleeping unit. I just think even in a house that might be a 4-bedroom, you wouldn't necessarily think, it might be some kids who don't drive, maybe a spare bedroom. You aren't going to have 4 adult drivers, right? But these are all rented separately. Presumably you'd have to be an adult to rent a room. Like these are going to be 4 at least separate adults. Maybe you could even have couples. I don't know. And so let's say it's a 4-unit, 1 parking space for 4. And what I've seen in the past with some of these policies kind of coming down from the state is they said, well, if you don't live near high-speed transit, maybe you don't have to do quite as much. And it sounds like that is not the case in this situation. It's sort of a one-size-fits-all. Doesn't matter if you're out in the middle of New Duval and don't have any transportation, you are on the hook. The max you can require is 1/4 of a parking spot. So 1 parking spot per 4 units. And I'm seeing shaking heads. So I'm not going to ask formally that question because then I would use it up. But I just wanted to point that out that that's what it sounds like. And it's really concerning. But so I'm just trying to wrap my head around what this will look like. And I have kiddos in college. And I guess I never thought of these places as co-living necessarily, but a lot of the new apartments that are in these college towns are rented by the room. Like your room has its own lease and you get a key to your room and then there's a shared, it just looks like a regular apartment, except there's locks on the doors and you rent them separately. Is that what this is? Basically?
Yes. Yeah, yes. So they can be independently rented, just like a regular kind of 1-bedroom apartment. Just with the shared facilities.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a great option. I mean, there's a lot of risks of finding roommates and signing a lease all together, so this is a neat option. I actually look forward to seeing more about it. Parking is an issue though.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 public hearings this evening. So we'll move on to our first one. It's updates to DMC 14.58 regarding impact fees, and Larissa Grandel will lead the public hearing. And then our second one will be on the hazard mitigation plan with Luke Eckert, our emergency management coordinator, presenting. Before I open the public hearing, I will read into the record the public hearing rules. In adherence to the regulations outlined for public hearings before the Duval City Council, Chapter 9 of the City Council Procedures Manual, any individual seeking to address the council during the designated public comments segment must comply with the following procedures. First, sign in on the provided form specific to the public hearing, and second, thoroughly complete all pertinent sections of the said form. Upon commencement of the hearing, as announced by the chair, typically the mayor, the city clerk will present the chair with the sign-in sheet. Subsequently, the chair will proceed with the agenda for the public hearing. Each speaker will be summoned to the podium in the order listed on the sign-in form, where they must communicate their name and, if relevant, their address, affiliation with any organization or group being represented, and their corresponding role or position within said organization or group. Time limits for speaking engagements are 3 minutes for individuals representing themselves and 5 minutes for those representing a group or organization, unless otherwise determined by a majority vote of the council present. The city clerk will monitor and enforce these time limits, setting a timer for each speaker to ensure adherence. Comments should be pertinent to the subject matter of the public hearing and respectfully addressed to the city council Personal remarks are deemed inappropriate. Disorderly conduct, including disruptive behavior such as booing or harassment, will not be tolerated and may result in removal from the premises. Speakers may alternatively submit written comments, which will be added to the official record by the city clerk. Questions posed during the hearing will not be answered immediately, but may be addressed at the chair's discretion following the close of the comment period. Copies of the city council and public hearing procedures will be available upon request and distributed to attendees at the outset of each public hearing session conducted by the Duval City Council. With that, I'll open the hearing on impact fees. Ms. Brendel.
Good evening, Mayor, council, staff, members of the public that have joined us. Alex Brendel, Public Works. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over the public hearing for our update to impact fees 1458. Just do a brief summary of the timeline that we've covered up to this point, key updates in the code, and then what are the next steps. Next slide, please. So we started back in September where we did kind of our initial editing and internal review. We sent our notice of intent to Commerce early in September as well. We completed SEPA, both of those comment periods and appeal periods have ended. We went to Planning Commission and did our public hearing and got a recommendation earlier in November. We did a written report for intro where we had a strike and delete original and then proposed changes in I think the second meeting in November. And then we're here tonight for our public hearing. So some of the key updates, there is a statutory alignment that we needed to do. So we needed to update definitions, the applicability, the fee timing, use of funds, and some of the other provisions to align with the RCW. We also had to update some language as it defined credits and exemptions, specifically to affordable housing, early learning facilities and things like that. So we mirrored RCW. So it's nothing really new. It's just also putting it in our code to make it clear. There were some clarifications made to our deferral program. School impact fees, there was a little bit of clarity. Again, it was a lot of reorganization. It's I don't think that we had updated the code for maybe 8 years. So it was a lot of reorganization to make sure that it was easy to understand. And then that goes with the administrative improvements. And then so modernizing the code to ensure legal compliance, transparency, and it's easier for council and staff to administer. Next slide. So tonight, our next steps are tonight, City Council is public hearing. I think we have the opportunity to talk about this again later if there's any questions that come, and then adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Brendel. And that concludes, actually, first of all, clerk, were there anybody signed in for public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, that concludes the public hearing for impact fees, and we'll move on to our second public hearing, the hazard mitigation plan with Luke Eckert, our emergency management coordinator, and I will open that hearing.
Well, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the audience. Do you have a slideshow shown?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So we talked about this a little bit the last council meeting, but the 2025 hazard mitigation plan. The hazard mitigation plan is an annex onto the county hazard mitigation plan. So this one's area specific to our city and the kind of hazards that Duval faces specifically. It's not just natural, but also human-caused disasters that are a risk to Duval. And then it outlines strategies that we can participate in the long term to help mitigate some of these risks that we're exposed to. And then for the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, this is putting us in compliance with that act and makes us eligible for mitigation grants, which can be a significant sum of money. And then the updates on this plan occur every 5 years. There was a drafted one from 5 years ago. I'm not sure if it ever made it to council adoption. I haven't been able to find any information on that. So this might be the first time we've had an official one. Next slide, please. So the plan outlines local hazards in text format, but also visually, which is really helpful for our public education and outreach activities in the city. So if you look at this map here, this is one of a series of maps in the plans that shows flood hazard areas, liquefaction potential, and then also landslide hazard zones. This is one of many maps that are inside of this plan. Being where we are, as everyone that lives in this region is aware, we face very specific hazards like flooding and windstorms that some of the other areas in the region aren't as susceptible to. So making sure that we're participating in projects that address the hazards that are unique to our area is very important. And the local mitigation actions, the investment upfront that you take to mitigate hazards ends up costing a lot less than trying to respond afterwards and recover. It's a good investment and there's a lot of research behind it. Next slide, please. So inside the document, it has a complete list of all the hazards that we're exposed to, and then it also has specifically in our city context how we're vulnerable to those specific hazards, and then to us what kind of impact we would expect from those. So if you look on the screen, it shows earthquakes and avalanches. So the avalanche one is blank because we don't have any susceptibility to avalanches directly in the city of people. Hopefully, maybe if we had a crazy snow year. But earthquakes is the next one. And then also the probability of future occurrences. So some of them are going to be pretty low in terms of what we'd expect the probability of future occurrences to be like, and that would be like terrorism. And then some are high. Earthquake it's low on an individual day. Over the next 100 years, it's very likely that we're going to experience a significant earthquake. So that's an example of this. Next slide, please. In the plan, there's the proposed mitigation activities. Some of these have already been completed. If you look on the right, you'll see some that say complete. Some have no updates or no status, and some are ongoing. If it's going to be part of a mitigation grant application, it has to be listed in this section. So even if it's not something that we currently have plans to be doing as a project, this is a useful section to put our hopes and dreams in so that we can hopefully apply for those or have them documented in the future and potentially be able to get funding for them. Next slide, please. So the hazard mitigation plan process, like I said, is on a 5-year revamp, and the King County base plan goes in to FEMA along with every jurisdictional annex like ours for approval, and then it has to come back to council for adoption, and it has to go to public comment every single time. And then following adoption, we're going to track on that tracking sheet of all of our mitigation projects to keep them updated and be aware of what we've accomplished and what we'd like to accomplish in the future. So it's a living document. We can update it anytime, but the base of it has to be adopted. And then, yeah, we can do it whenever we want. Next slide. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did we have anyone sign in for a public hearing?
No.
All right, with that, public hearing is now closed. And we'll move on to existing business, Agenda Bill 25-52, 2025, 2026, mid-biennium review and budget adjustments for discussion and or decision. Would council like to make a motion?
Very short slide presentation.
Okay, well, we can do the motion before or during.
It's just restating what's in the agenda bill, the budget notes and the adjustment.
Yeah.
You can go to the next slide. So basically just noting some budget notes. These were changes that didn't require a budget adjustment due to being able to use our funds for the reclass and the elimination of the position, covering the cost of the changes to the other positions. And next slide. And then these are just the recap of the budget adjustments that we have already reviewed.
And that's it. All right, would someone like to make a motion? Councilmember Supple.
I move to approve Agenda Bill 2562, adopting Ordinance 1342, which amends Ordinance 1333 to account for adjustments to expenditure appropriations for the 2025-2026 biennial budget.
Second. All right, any discussion? Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, just put, Beth, if you could refresh my memory, did we already agree on the expenditure from the strategic? We did. Okay, so I don't want to bring that up again. Thanks.
All right, any further questions?
Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like, please say no.
No.
Let the motion, record reflect, Councilmember Naplan voted no. Moving on to Agenda Bill 25-68, updates to the DMC 14.58 regarding impact fees for discussion and or decision. We've seen the presentation. Would someone like to make a motion? I know everyone's looking. Well, we have a presentation, so if you can, the best way to do it is we're gonna vote on it, is to make the motion and then have discussion. Because that keeps us closer within our bounds of our rules, but you're welcome to discuss it before if you would like to.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I know that's the Robert's rules, we're supposed to be motion first, so, I, move to, approve Agenda Bill 25-68, adopting the amended Duval Municipal Code 14.58 as drafted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Schaefer?
I have a question regarding the payment of the refunds of potential refund of impact fees and also the deferral of impact fees. From what I could see on the deferrals, it looks like almost anybody can file for a deferral. And in fact, my concern with that would become the essentially the norm for developers. Am I misreading something there or misinterpreting something? What I really want to make sure is that we don't have developers come in and defer their impact fees for no particular reason.
That's yes, that's a great question. And this was actually part of a legislation requirement that jurisdictions adopted a deferral program. And that was in 2015 or 2017. So it's not optional for us to have a deferral program.
Not optional. Okay.
So this is part of the existing code that didn't have a lot of changes. It just kind of was reorganized and made clear to align with RCW. I don't know if that answered your question.
That is helpful. I didn't ask it very well, but I was wondering if that was up to our discretion or not.
No.
And
There is
apparently
a limit
it's
to
not.
the number of deferrals that a developer can do in a year, but there's also requirements that come, oh, and Oscar jumped on, but there's also requirements for when those deferred impact fees are paid. So it's not indefinitely, you don't get occupancy unless you pay the impact fees and all these, there's a whole bunch of rules.
Sure.
So, but it's not optional for us.
And the refund of impact fees, is that the same story? That's not really an option for us?
Correct, that is our CW, and we have 10 years to spend the money on our identified capital improvement projects. And if we don't spend the money that we have collected, it does go back to the developer.
Okay, and they can also, we're also required to refund the impact fee if they pull out of the bill.
They don't pay the impact fee until they have a building permit.
Right.
Yes,
But even then,
if they don't build the
if
building.
they don't build the building, we have to require,
Yeah.
or we have to repay.
Yeah, because then technically the impact of that dwelling unit would not be built.
Understand, and that's required in state law
Yeah.
as well. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to add anything, Oscar.
The only thing I wanted to add on the deferral is that those are limited to single family residences. And so it's not like there's a deferral option for all kinds of impact fee uses. It's just in the case of single family residences. And so just want to make that clarification.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Naplan?
So I must have missed it before, but once I saw the red line that came out later today, drew my attention to the fact that there's a whole section on how the transportation impact fee kind of is calculated based on PM peak trips and how many trips a certain development will generate, and that all looks like it was removed, and it starts talking about, oh, well, there's a impact fee chart that we will adopt. But I was thinking, well, the calculation of how many trips, where do we have anything in code now that is removed from here that specifies our methodology for calculating trips or the section I'm talking about? It was in,
I think so, yeah.
14.58060. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have it in we clarified adopting the fee schedule or the fee resolution. The fee resolution establishes the unit. And then we have further guidance documents that are adopted through development design standards for how you do it. So specifically for transportation, we have guidance for how to develop a traffic impact analysis. And that follows standards from the International ITE. My brain's not working right now, but it's the TRIP standard for how to generate based on the development, how many PM peak hour trips there are. And it also says in our transportation plan that that's how we do our impact fee calculations. So explicitly in code, no, because it's in other places. So trying to remove the round robin of things and have it live in one place is the intent of some of these code updates that are forthcoming too.
Okay. But we still could have the provision of requiring, if you're, I don't know, I'm trying to think, this is non-residential, but like, if you were building a school or something, you would still be required to do the traffic study and try to figure out how many trips it generates. The fee would be calculated based on that. Okay, yes, that answers that question. And I have one other question.
Okay, you've already asked two. Council, are there any other council questions or comments?
I'm confused. I only asked one.
You commented as well. So if council doesn't have any more comments, you may go. Does council have anything else? All right, you may go.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I don't recall ever mentioning.
Councilmember Naplin, please get to your point.
Okay. So there's a section about the requirement to backfill that looks like it's changed, or maybe I just hadn't read it the same way. And it's something like, it used to be, I feel like we were always told, can't waive impact fees, we would have to repay the whole amount if that happened. And so now it looks like you can waive up to 80% insert. So is there any way you could describe more about what was the law and if there was any discretionary decision in there?
No,
Okay.
that is part of this legislative requirement. And it's already in RCW, what you're allowed to do, which is why, again, the intent for some of the exemptions was to clarify in code what those mandatory exemptions are, and then what is a permissive exemption. And those things, they set limits in RCW, but the permissive exemptions are one of those things that would come to council. And council would, on a case-by-case basis, allow up to 80%. You don't have the requirement to backfill.
But it would never be an administrative decision.
No,
It would always be
it says permissive exemptions. The city council may, by resolution or ordinance, exempt or reduce impact fees for those things.
on a case by case.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
And it's just those things, again, low income housing, early learning facilities, and the things that council deems appropriate.
Perfect.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. With that, we'll move on to Agenda Bill 25-69, the Hazard Mitigation Plan for approval. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Agenda Bill 2569 Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Finally, moving on to our last item of new business, Agenda Bill 25-70, letter of intent for energy system lease. Before we open discussion decision, I will note that we did receive one public comment on this that was distributed by the clerk. It was received by the deadline. And a follow-up email from Director Laniszewski explaining the issues within that letter. And so now I'll turn it over to Director Laniszewski, and then we'll ask for a motion.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, citizens, Steve Laniszewski, Public Works. My internet just dropped. That's fun. So what you have in the packet is a letter of intent, is of interest of the city over the past year after some discussion we've had at several meetings. Questions today arose relative to a few things. I will take care of the in-house ones first before out of house. Let's see, so some questions. Okay, first was relative to some schematic images on the site relative to stormwater and some vaults. So there's a pond on the far east section, there's a vault for the central west section, and it was again a very preliminary schematic that a consultant provided for us when we were considering if we could or should or would be able to host a maintenance and operations center on the parcel. So those are just things that are shown on there that should fit. That is not design. We are working on getting into contract for design. Of course, we would try to do LID. We like ponds. We don't like vaults. That is just a graphical rendition of something that would be considered. It is not permanent by any means or approved by any means or anything other than conceptual level ideas put on paper for city's consideration to see what could fit, should it need to fit, and if we would be comfortable using that site that we chose to use as our maintenance and operations center. On top of that question was about the power station and some of the exclusivity language in the agreements or in the agreement that's presented, other partnerships and due diligence on feedback. So at this point, this is somewhat exclusive. It is like submitting my notes for like an offer by a house and you're waiting for the owner to approve or disapprove. So the third party provider, which is Mammoth, came to us. I in turn came to council. We talked at a very silly site, which we waved bye-bye to very early on with council discussion, and we just decided if we could find it somewhere else that it was something that was of interest. So this is where it became of interest. Their program for Puget Sound Energy is they put a proposal together in and amongst an open call, kind of like we do for projects, which is due at the end of January. And then PSC itself will review their applications that are provided from any number of any companies and or agencies and those combinations thereof. So we could have other shots at providing something with someone else, but we had nobody else of interest. Now, we did not do an open call. They came to us and we kind of walked that road with them. But at this point, we wouldn't entertain any other engagement with any other agency because once the application goes in, like they will have to about May or June to decide if they liked ours and Mammoth's joint or not. And then we would either A, try to find someone else or B, move on and build our own building. But I think everybody thought it was a decent idea to try to generate some revenue and provide some streamlined utility management for energy. And we had the space. And if it works out great, and if it doesn't great, I don't think it's any harm, no foul. So we're still at that point, no harm, no foul, even though we are going forward with this company. So the first kind of questions provided internally. And then we had some submitted information, again, kind of on the same topic of exclusivity. They are on that one. I'm gonna kind of exclusivity has been talking about confidentiality. We will and have talked to Mammoth even today. But once we would begin an actual leasing process, if we get through the hoops that PSC selects, many different activities, lease items, sections, very rigorous amounts of information and copious amounts of information are in the lease. We have leases now with other telco agencies for cell towers on our water tanks. So there's plenty of things that would be coming to the council. Again, it is if we want to walk away today, we can.
We don't have to entertain this at all. If we entertain it and get selected and choose to not entertain it, we can walk away. Again, it's not anything binding us to get into anything. However, we did get into a lease down the road. We would have specific items. We would have some things behind closed doors in exec session that were based on negotiations that qualified for executive session. But we could also, at the end, it has to come to council as a whole for a public item and a vote. And then subleasing was a question and a comment as far as assignment. Subleasing in our current leases is allowed. We are just involved to some extent. That can be like I put the current note out of our existing lease for sale. Like if there is additional revenues to be had, like if let's say we lease it for $1 a month and they're going to get $2 by subleasing someone else to do the work, then our current lease says we get 50% of the increase. So there's ways to capture any sort of changes that may occur on a subletting activity. So all in all, it's very preliminary. Again, I met with I was able to get a quick call with Mammoth. Oscar and I met today. I can understand the questions as they came in. I am not concerned. However, the city can walk away today in the process of being selected, after the process of being selected. But yes, once you would enter into it in actual lease, you'd have to follow the exit clauses within the lease itself. But those are my notes. Oscar, did I miss anything? Would you like to add anything?
I think you covered it. I'm happy to answer any questions about the nature of this agreement. I would just stress that this agreement is not the lease. This is just an agreement that really allows Mammoth to do some feasibility work and get the information it needs to submit an application to PSE. So, but I'm here for any questions the council might have on legal issues.
Would someone like to make a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion and I have a comment.
Yep.
Staff or my recommended to approve Agenda Bill 2570, that the council authorizes the mayor to sign a letter of intent with Mammoth Summit to investigate the opportunities and potentially work with Puget Sound Energy to house an energy storage system at our future MOC. And I guess the only comments.
We'll wait for a second.
Also, a second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. No. Mayor Pro Tem.
My only comment is, I didn't see, for me, there were no red flags because it was a multi-phased process. Mammoth was sort of on the hook for all the expenditures in terms of the site analysis, so there was no city cost at the end of the 6 months, duration of the contract. City could walk away, as Steve said, or Mammoth could walk away. But I, also approached this from, even though I know there was some public feedback to the contrary, sort of the bird in the hand. We have someone who's interested, there's a potential revenue stream, there's no guarantee that there'll be another partner. PSE is the primary. And, if it doesn't look like a good deal at the end of the day, we're not obligated to accept the lease term. So I'm sort of in favor of moving forward with this.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, related to the exclusivity aspect of this agreement, the wording says that you agree that for the term of this agreement, you will negotiate only with Mammoth, et cetera, et cetera. What is the term of this agreement and what are the limitations on
that? The term of the agreement is 6 months, and I really interpret it as only applying to the kind of the feasibility work that Mammoth wants to do. So when I reviewed this originally, it didn't seem like that provision didn't seem like a major problem to me, given the relatively short-term nature of the agreement, and it really does only cover the portion of the property that is under consideration for a potential facility.
Right. So after 6 months, however, we have another party that expresses interest in doing the same thing. We are allowed to talk about. Is that correct?
That's correct. Unless the parties were to extend the agreement, which can only happen by mutual consent, then after 6 months, the agreement expires and the city is free to talk to other folks.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I like, just to add to that too, it is about the soaking period between the application timeline due at the end of January and then their 4-month review process and selecting anybody through their 5, 10, 15 applications that implement through Puget Sound Energy. So let's say, yes, they didn't select us, but then if we're still interested, we can pursue our own activities outside of this one specific one, or maybe we can select a new court, I don't know, but yeah.
Okay.
It sits with this timeline that we wouldn't really engage with anybody else in because they're all in the same boat. They're putting, whoever wants to do things and whatever agencies are putting their stuff together for end of January submittals, and then they have their, May/June announcements.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Macklin?
So there was something that I hadn't. I mean, when this was presented, it was, as it is, just kind of an investigational process, and we're getting into an agreement that, hey, we'll investigate this with you, and I didn't really think a lot about it because there's no commitment or anything. But when I looked at it again, there's some terms like in good faith, and then there's very specific dollar amounts listed and other specifics, quite specific stuff. And so I started to think, in good faith, what does that mean legally? Does that mean, hey, you don't want to really deviate far from what we've really outlined here because that wouldn't be in good faith? You've already sort of seen an outline of the terms, and if you go veer too far, well, that's a bait and switch. You wouldn't have gotten into this agreement. You're asking for too much. This is not good faith. And so for me, if that's the case, where we kind of are sort of need to stay close to what's outlined in this agreement about how much they're gonna pay us and some of the other terms, I haven't done enough due diligence to know if that's a good deal. How have other communities felt who've gotten into an agreement with Mammoth? Are there some things in there that we would kind of want to make sure we're on the table to discuss? Like, what do we get out of it in addition to, however much per year that we get? Is there another benefit to us? Are we first on the tap to use that electricity? Do we have a preferred rate? There's just a whole bunch of things that I think this council had hoped would be a benefit of the lease. And I don't necessarily see some of those components, and I really haven't heard from other cities that have worked with this, or how does it pan out? On the surface, it seems like, yeah, why not explore it? But then if this is something we're really seriously interested in, are we handcuffing ourselves to kind of what's outlined here? And so what exactly does it mean in good faith when you have some very specific stuff outlined? Like it's not just loosely, we will come up with an annual amount. It's here's the amount. So I guess this is for Oscar to help me understand, when you use terms like in good faith negotiations and so much specifics are already outlined, where does that put us?
I'll let Oscar answer, but I also will reiterate, this is a letter of intent. This is not a lease or a long-term legal agreement. A letter of intent is the very start of the process, and that there's significant, as Director Lynn you just pointed out, there's a significant amount of time, work, and effort to go through negotiations if there were to be a lease agreement, as we do with all of our real estate and everything else. So this seems kind of moot, but I'll let the city attorney respond.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the agreement. The language about good faith is in the non-binding portion. It's in section 7. And it talks about how this agreement and any figures serve only as a basis for further discussions and negotiations between the parties with respect to any land use agreement. In the event Mammoth elects to present a land use agreement to you, you agree to negotiate with Mammoth in good faith for a period of 60 days in an attempt to reach agreement on such definitive documentation. And so, in my view, there would be an obligation to negotiate, and it's not really an obligation because it's not in the binding portion of the agreement, but the idea behind the letter of intent is that that there's a 60-day negotiation period, but I don't see anything in the letter of intent that requires the city to agree to any specific terms or parameters. I believe that negotiating in good faith is carrying on a dialogue and a discussion and a negotiation, and doesn't obligate the city to agree to terms that are outlined in the letter of intent.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember.
One more question, and it was just a question more about the origin. I remember when you first mentioned this, I think you said PSC has approached us, et cetera, et cetera. Was it PSC that then sent Mammoth out, or was it just Mammoth knowing that they were going to work with PSC?
Yeah, Mammoth was just scouting places here, there, and everywhere, so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. All right, motion passes unanimously. And with that, we have no further business. So I just want to say once again, thank you, staff, for all of your hard work this last, well, the entire time I've been a public servant to the city. And thank you for all you've done, especially the last few years. As we come out of the pandemic, we really have gotten much farther than I think we would have expected in this short period of time, in stabilizing the city with fiscal resiliency policies. Certainly with moving our facilities improvements forward, et cetera. And none of it would have happened without all of you. And thank you to council as well. Thank you for those that have always been collaborative, who've always treated our staff with respect, and recognized that they are doing everything in good faith for the betterment of our community and to support you all. And thank you, and wish you all the best in the future. And with that, unless there are objections, we are adjourned.